Hello, hello. How are you doing?
Welcome to the Upsiders, Time Traveler's Guide to the Present. Today, right now,
Yes.
taking a look at all these different issues, different problems that so many of us have been talking about. But we focus here on the solutions that are in
Mm.
practice right here, right now, to make
We
you
are
maybe
the
feel better about the future.
we're the synagogue of solutions here on the
Ooh,
upside, my friend.
praise be.
Yes. Praise be to
Shalom.
Los.
Shalom, or as we're recording this, Ramadan Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. We
Mm,
just started Ramadan. Well,
very
not
nice.
we, because I'm not practicing
Yeah.
Muslim. Um, but yeah, have friends. Yeah, go ahead. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. It's Bertram. You kept me in the
Yes.
dark. What are we talking about today?
Oh, my good friend. We are talking about micro businesses.
Oh,
It spun off from last week's episode. If you recall, it was outstanding. Los wanted to talk about it. Cul-de-sac, a place in, I want to say it was Tempe, Arizona,
that's right.
with a bunch of like-minded car-free living, a neighborhood where they offer you car-free transportation and just a return to the neighborhood, if you will. And one of the things that we talked about was that there were some micro retail places in cul-de-sac, and it just kind of got me down a rabbit hole, and I wanted to learn more, Los, about micro entrepreneurship, micro retailers, and micro businesses.
So I may ask, what makes them micro?
This is uh, Dave Griswold. What is a micro business? Micro businesses are also referred to as a micro enterprise, is a term generally used to describe a business operating with fewer than 10 people. One of the things that in my research I looked at was we have to be careful when we throw everything under the small business umbrella. Small business gets brought up a lot. So, what is the difference between a small business and a micro business? It is specifically, micro businesses differ from small businesses in size and scope. Micro businesses are smaller, tend to focus on a specific niche, while small businesses may offer a range of products and services. The size of a business can affect the eligibility for loans and other types of financing. The Small Business Administration defines small business by revenue, ranging from 1 million to 40 million plus, and by number of employees from 100 to 1,500 plus. Meanwhile, the Office of Advocacy of the Small Business Administration states that micro business employers are firms with 1 to 9 employees. Los, do you have an idea of what sort of micro business examples there could be?
Micro business examples?
Yeah, what would be an example of a
Like
micro business?
like
So
a
if I
modern, like a influencer, like social media content creator.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, absolutely. Okay, so that's a good idea. Some of the following can be considered micro businesses: freelancers,
Mhm,
independent contractors,
mhm.
startup businesses, e commerce businesses, street vendors, and small local independent retailers. A lot of time, micro businesses are run by entrepreneurs or micropreneurs, which I also learned.
Micropreneurs, huh?
Yes. Specifically, one of the things that I think I really enjoyed here, Los, was that when when we talk about small business, I mean, we talk a lot about the American dream, right? The American dream is something that both liberals and conservatives seem to agree on, about this idea that you could start a small business and you can take it to end up being Walmart, right?
Yeah.
I push back on that because I don't think an economy where everyone strives to be Walmart is a successful one. I think that there's nothing wrong with being the little guy and being successful being the little guy. And so one possible distinction is that micropreneurs are not necessarily focused on rapid growth and expansion. They may focus instead on meeting client needs and delivering a service without a huge investment in operations, employees, or property. Entrepreneurs tend to look towards establishing a larger footprint and typically secure financing and hire people to help them grow. So, a micropreneur, in Indianapolis, there's a lot of micropreneurs. I know a t-shirt company that I've worked with in the past, and the guy
Mhm.
who owns it says, I'm just trying, I'm not trying to scale this up to be Target and sell a bunch of shirts. I'm just, I'm doing this because it's a passion. I want to be left alone. There's also a Circles Ice Cream in this city who, it's just one guy, West Du Bois. He
He's
puts
the only guy in the ice cream shop?
yeah, well, so what he is it's actually a really great idea. He takes freezers and he puts them in places around the city full of his ice cream pints. And you just go up and scan the QR code, like you walk into like a bar, you scan
Mm,
the barcode, you pay for the ice cream, you just open up the freezer, you take your ice cream and you leave. And he's
mm,
not interested in scaling up and having it all around the city or anything. He just likes making some ice cream and it's amazing ice cream. So shout outs
mm.
to Wes at Circles Ice Cream. And he's in like, I don't know, 9 locations probably. So that would be a micropreneur, not trying to necessarily scale it up, just a hobby, something that, puts a little money in your tank.
So it sounds to me that micro businesses are actually what people think when they think of small businesses, like the
Yeah.
classical belief, because a lot of small businesses are like small, sort of, they're like, yeah, they're just like 20, 50 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an
Well, and this,
office
yeah.
that you may
Well,
open and maintain, or a small bank or something like that.
because in your head, would you consider a car dealership a small business?
Yeah.
No, right?
Yeah.
Because there's,
It's not like a, yeah. It's not
yeah,
like
so
a
a
big
smart
business.
dealership.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's these small I think of, you and I love the Bronx. And when I went to the Bronx, I told you how much I enjoyed it. And what I really appreciate about New York is how there's all these very small storefronts
Yeah.
and they're just bundled up together. And that makes it very walkable. But there's also, there's less chance of a food desert in some of these neighborhoods because they're so tightly packed together. And there's not a lot of space,
Yeah.
and here in a lot of cities,
Yeah.
we just, we have a lot of liberal space in terms of just. You go into a grocery store over here, even if it's Whole Foods or Kroger, and you're like, why is there all this open space for people to wander around? And
Yeah.
maybe we don't need that much. We all
Well,
appreciate it because all these, these,
a lot
all
of
these,
sprawl.
yeah, all these ladies and kids are just walking past with all, trying to move out
Yeah.
of my way. And it's like, man, you don't need 5 shopping carts per aisle to just be
Yeah.
that wide. And so I think I really appreciate that about just some smaller storefronts that offer small things, Lowe's.
Beautiful.
Yes. Um, Now, to go back to why do I care, Lowe's, and,
Mhm.
and why should our listeners be interested in micro businesses? Lowe's, who is your favorite Revolutionary War hero?
My Revolutionary War hero?
Yeah, who's your guy in the
Someone
Revolutionary
boots on the
War?
ground, or
It could be
just
whoever you want.
founding father, or
When you it doesn't have to be necessarily a founding father, but when you think of just, oh man, that's your Revolutionary War character. They steal the show. Did you ever watch Liberty Kids?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was your favorite Liberty Kids episode? You know
I'm
who that
just
was. Go back. It's all on YouTube, by the way. Liberty Kids was this amazing Revolutionary War show. I think when you and I were kids,
yeah.
like I don't know, I would say like late '90s maybe. And it was an all star cast. Every
Mm,
episode, it was the whole Revolutionary War, and I think like Denzel was in it. It was just a outstanding celebrity cameo. So go back and watch Liberty Kids on YouTube. So who was your person?
man.
You look like a Ben Franklin kind of
I
guy,
was
because
thinking
that's
Ben Franklin. I
yeah, I
think I
figured.
think Benny may be my favorite. I mean, I hesitate with Benny because he got a little older. You know, Constitution. He was hardly alive when he was just sitting there,
He
but
was the old man.
he was the old man.
Yeah.
You know, I love the old man. It's Ben Franklin.
Mm. What lesson would you think Ben Franklin teaches? Like, what's Ben Franklin's theme? What's the lesson?
What's the lesson that Ben?
Yeah, maybe just wisdom.
Yeah, or just perspective, you know? Ben Franklin's all about perspective. It's like he understood, like, he could speak with anyone, you know? He could speak
Mm.
with the French. He had a lot of fun in France, you know that. He had a lot with it.
have go read the autobiography of Ben Franklin if you want to talk about it,
Yeah,
people.
but yeah, he just loved perspective, and he was quite pragmatic for such a revolutionary that he was. So that's what I yeah. I
Mm.
Thomas Jefferson would be close, but he had his own issues. But
Oh yeah,
he was a
I
walking contradiction.
yeah. Aren't we all?
What about yours?
Man, he was a real heroic guy that a walking contradiction, and I think he whipped a man to death or near to
Oh,
death.
so
What?
it's not John Adams.
No, it's definitely not John Adams. In fact, this gentleman had to change his name because he whipped a man almost to death, and his family came looking for him. Mr. John Paul Jones.
John Paul Jones.
Oh yeah,
You know, it's interesting too, not to get off topic, that the reason one can argue the reason why John Adams isn't as celebrated as many of the other founding
because he
fathers was,
wasn't a contradiction.
yeah, he was too principled.
He was too good of a man, and his son.
Yeah, John Quincy. They were very principled, and that made them kind of
Yeah,
boring.
he did the good thing and like defended the British soldiers
Yep.
at the Boston Massacre, even though
He
I don't
said they
agree
had
with them.
rights. Yeah.
Even John Cena now is fallible. And I would have said John Cena was up there with John Adams, and then I don't think John Adams has ever kicked another man in the balls. So, um, but to get back onto topic of micro businesses, I wanted to tie this episode around a theme. If I could give it a title, if I can give it a moral, John Paul Jones is one of my heroes, and I live my values according to this quote that he said, and it's, I wish to have no connection with any ship that does not sail fast, for I
Mm.
intend to go in harm's way.
Mm.
uh, John Paul Jones stood against the British Army with just his ship. I want to say it was the Bonhomme Richard, and no one takes on or defeats the British Navy during this time. British Navy is the most powerful navy in the history of the world, and here's this guy on this fast ship, and they sunk his ship, Los. And he still kept battling back, and he beat him. And I think one thing that I value in any discipline is that big ships go far, they go strong, they
Mm.
can take a lot of people, but small ships can go fast, and they can get a lot farther a lot faster. And I think in any of these episodes that we're talking about, any of these solutions that we talk about, and you and I did many years of Mad World where we tried to fix a lot of society's issues. I think you need a combination of both, Los. I think you need the fast ship that can get out there quick and go scout things, and I think you need the big ship that can play defense and do some serious battle and have the cannons and things like that. And so, you know, I don't want to talk too much about the looming difficult issues in our society right now with the inflation and the price of eggs and this administration that's just doing is bananas, and Elon Musk and all these things. And we're not going to try and solve all of our problems today, but whatever it is, I think we can agree that we need to have some sort of fast moving ship that's going to get out there and see what's going on. And for me, I think that's small businesses and micro businesses, right? One of the things that we talk about in the links to the show notes is that small businesses are where a lot of innovation can happen. And you and
Mm.
I talk so much. We did robot jobs, and we did AI and education and all these great powerful things. We need to have some small innovation on the front lines that are going to tell us where we need to go. And you don't do that without a John Paul Jones. You don't do that without a fast ship. Do you agree?
I agree. I mean, I've worked in tech for a while, and I could tell you that whatever you maybe you love like Gmail or some feature in Google Calendar, But
Yeah.
once upon a time, that was a startup's entire business that Google ultimately bought out and incorporated that into, like I said, Gmail or Google Calendar. Just like a little feature that you may like used to be an
Hmm.
entire product from a startup of like 7 people. And yeah, and so they innovated something, a bigger fish liked it. And so it ate the little fish, giving it a few bucks along the way. But
Mm.
that just goes to show you, though, without those little fish, Google can't be what it is. And yeah, so yeah, I agree. Innovation.
Yeah, and to build upon that, I have in the show notes some data from the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council.
Mhm,
Small businesses represent about 96% of employer firms in high patenting manufacturing industries, a
mhm,
percentage that remained constant from 2007 to 2012. However, during that same period, small businesses' share of employment, payroll, and receipts increased. This increase was particularly notable in firms that manufactured computers and peripheral equipment, communications equipment, or semiconductors and other electronic components. In addition, a 2008 study found that small firms are much more likely to develop emerging technologies than are large firms. This is perhaps intuitively reasonable given theories on small firms affecting technological change, but the quantitative data here supports this assertion. Specifically, although small firms account for only 8% of patents granted, they account for 24% of the patents in the top 100 emerging clusters. So I find that very interesting. And in these great emerging clusters, the future is not being driven by these large corporations, right? They're
yeah.
branching it out and building it out, and these small micro businesses and small businesses seem to be doing a lot of the work on the frontier
And why do you think that is that big businesses are slower to innovate?
because they have to play conservative because there's a lot of money at stake. I would say is in order for a business to become large, they have to put these slow moving structures in place. They have to put protocols, they have to put standards, right? There has to be a system to retain employees, to handbooks and things of that nature, right? Is I imagine, you don't see Target on the frontier of retail, right? You don't see Target ever doing any innovation because they just take what already is innovated and they build it out. Um, Look at how long it takes for a giant board to make a decision, right? It's you have a board of 10. How big are some of these companies, Los? They have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees. You're not on the front line, so there's so many chains of command, so it's
Mhm.
like you don't even I haven't been inside one of my local stores in 10 years. I'm at the home office that's 20 miles away, and because of that lost nature, it's a very slow moving ship, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I tend to agree. I think we need to remember that when we're talking about corporations, the sole purpose, and it's very controversial, but the sole purpose is to maximize the profit of their shareholders. And a lot of times, stability does that more so than
Yeah.
risk and some of these wide reaching efforts to innovate that startups or smaller micro businesses could do much easier because they just have so much more momentum.
Man, excellently said. um I just I think that entrepreneurship is something that currently in our society, uh, having pushing people to develop an entrepreneurial mindset could solve some potential problems here, Los. And it's to the point where I think if all our neighborhoods can develop more micro businesses and small businesses and make more entrepreneurs, I think our neighborhoods, similar to cul-de-sac, would see a lot of growth and see a lot of happier people, I think.
Yeah.
Just being able to go out there, it gives you a lot of control. It gives you a lot of power, feeling like you have a say in how your business is run. And you and I have both worked in organizations where you see some very unhappy people where they don't care if the company turns a profit because they're just being paid hourly. And there's a lot of safety and there's a lot of comfort in working those jobs where you're not you're getting paid an hourly wage, but
Mhm.
it does cause some issues down the line because then you're not growing as a person.
Yeah. And I think a lot of I've always thought of like when we talk about the American dream and so many people feeling how feeling like sorry that that's becoming more and more out of reach.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, and I don't like to be you know reactionary or think that the past was better than now or anything like that, but one sort of spirit that we used to have was one of being industrious, right? There
Mm.
was a time where really your only choice was to start your own business because you lived in an area where maybe it was, just a few thousand people. And the whole idea of what capitalism was supposed to be was you have something to offer that someone else wants. And
Yeah.
what you could do in exchange is your services for their money. And then, it's like this chain, right? Of that person has something else that someone wants or more people want. And so you produce it and that's what gets gears turning in society and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what it came down to was okay, someone had what other people wanted, and then they wanted to give more to more people. And so they just like sort of consolidated into what we now know as these sort of multinational corporations.
Mm.
Before there
And
were only like a few of those on the planet, most of them called, whether it was the um, Dutch East Indian Company or
yeah.
The British East India Company. Those were the first like corporations who were just mega large, but like no one thought they could do that. That was just those few parties. And then everyone else had these small shops, whether you were a cobbler or a baker or a blacksmith or something like that. But now, not to
Mm.
say those exist, but they have so much less weight on society than they used to because now you have the Walmarts, the Targets, the Best Buys, the Apple,
Yeah.
everyone.
And
Yeah.
what's nice is I don't want to just be too one-sided. So to look at the other side, it is nice to have, hey, this thing kept getting bigger and there started to be more demand, and so they wanted to build out this business. But then also it becomes nice because then there's a lot of jobs for people in that community to do to keep themselves busy. Um, and then they all get health care, right? And they get more consistency and growth. Now there's booming businesses. um, the issue then becomes when that thing becomes a pillar in the community and then something happens and the market changes,
Yeah.
right? And that's not very capitalistic, right? When
Yeah.
there's this market changes, now this place is like, well, it's no longer valuable, but because it has so many jobs and is tied to health benefits, they need a bailout. And instead, you know it becomes a husk of its former self, and now it's just hanging around soaking up money. And there has to be a point where we shut it down. Does that make sense? Where it's like this thing has outlived its usefulness, and I'm curious of what you are a Friedman economist, and if you want to talk about Milton Friedman and what does he say about micro businesses or entrepreneurship or small businesses? How does that support his economic model?
I see it. Well, first I wanna preface that because I understand and have largely adopted the principles that is classic economics and the Austrian school, Chicago
Okay.
school, all of that.
Those
Doesn't
Friedman.
doesn't mean that I am just this money bags, you know, heartless enterprise person, but I do understand. It
No,
made me under
Los has a map behind him because he thinks about what country he wants to buy next.
Is it Greenland? No.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey, no,
hey,
I'm not going
hey.
there. I'm not going there. But the the fact of the matter is enterprise, right? Free enterprise is a principle that is largely encouraged in classical economics or monetarism, like Milton Friedman um like to sort of preach there, and that's it's just about the markets, right? In that the government shouldn't have much intervention there to promote this free activity of exchange of goods and services. And so, when from a philosophical point, you had that school of thought where it's like very little intervention, let things go. And then once things happen, you mentioned the possibility of employment. Well, unemployment happens, the market will correct itself because if
Yeah.
someone gets unemployed, then their services are needed elsewhere. So they'll pick up the pieces there and there may be some slight disruption, but don't worry because it'll always pick up. And then
Mm,
off off screen, you're probably asking me about this one here is Keynesian economics, right? That's the
yes.
opposite side of that. That means that unemployment is essentially inevitable, right? It's going to happen by one way or another. Maybe a corporation gets greedy, or maybe they feel like they need to cut costs. So ultimately, they'll decide to cut employees to manage and maintain their profits. And what happens when we reach a point where there's large scale unemployment? Well, unlike Milton Friedman and that school of thought, Milton Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, I should say, sorry, um, posits that the government should do something because if this is inevitable, you need to step in, right? And he came from the idea that for every dollar, so to speak, that the government spends, it ends up having an impact of something greater than that dollar. The dollar goes further when the government spends it rather than someone else.
Man,
So
not always.
yeah, well, that was the idea. But one thing I do appreciate about Keynes is that he came up with one of my favorite sayings is that when the evidence changes, my opinion will change. And so
Mm,
and so that well, he said that a little later in his life when they asked him about, well, what if what you posit doesn't work, right? And then yeah, he uttered that. Yeah. So yeah,
man, beautiful those. As we wrap this up, uh, do you feel
yeah.
that these idea of micro businesses maybe more so is this going to become a new trend now? Does it need to become a trend, and will it help combat some of these issues that we're having in our economy today when it comes to inflation, and people are still going crazy about the price of eggs? Can micro businesses have an effect on that?
Absolutely, because the more ideas that you have out there, the more innovation happens and you just have more activity, right? Right now we have a structure where so many people depend on big businesses for employment and by extension stability. But what happens is, and we've seen it in the past few years, where they decide, well, we need to cut down, right? We need to lay off a bunch of people. And then a lot of these workers, they gave everything to these companies and then only to
Yeah,
find themselves a name on a spreadsheet where they just get sort of written off. But these
yeah,
skills and workers have become more and more skilled. I think one could say that they're cutting themselves short because these skills
mm,
that you have, you could offer that, locally, so to speak. And I think that could go a bit more further than someone ultimately making it from junior to senior position to middle manager to C
yeah.
office or whatever, C suite. Yeah. So I
Y-
think there's a lot of value there and people
yeah.
should adopt more of an industrious entrepreneurial spirit where, yeah, it may feel like a risk, but don't sell yourself short on what you could do, right?
Yeah.
Someone else wants what you do. So,
One thing I wonder about too is you don't meet as many people who were union labor workers. I worked in the iron industry. I was a welder for 40 years, and then I retired. And um, that was there was there was much more of a plethora of those jobs 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And what I wonder about is, it seems like with technology rapidly changing and the just amount of technological progress we've made in the last 30 years, I do wonder, do humans have to be more versatile going forward, and really learn more skills and polish more skills, especially when it comes to computer science and engineering and things of that nature. Um, a lot of those jobs that can be done for 40 or 50 years seem to be possibly getting replaced or augmented in some ways by robots and AI, based on the last few episodes we've done.
Yeah, a bit because it's all about growth, right?
Yeah,
So if you're doing the same job for 40 years, like what has I'm speaking for the company. What has that done for us? How do we build
yeah,
on that? So that's why you don't see those types of jobs, and by virtue, you don't see
yeah,
those same types of pensions that used to exist. So yeah, but thing is that this is happening already in so many places. But we think of places like the Nordic countries, like Sweden and all of those and what they're doing for workers and blah blah blah, but
yeah.
they also have higher rates of entrepreneurship. Sweden in fact has programs to incentivize people to start their own businesses, which for all the egalitarian thing views that we have on them, and how yeah everyone virtually makes the same thing, whether you're like a doctor or like a driver or something, but at the same time, they have one of the highest rates of billionaires per capita
Oh wow.
because, yeah, you have what? Spotify, IKEA. Like these are small countries. I think Sweden has a population of maybe what, 6 million? Um, but they've churned out some of these like huge things, but they also have like, micro businesses as well because they just promote, hey, if you could help out to this pool of people, like we'll be that much better, and there's incentives for you to do that. So maybe
Yeah,
we should
that's
do something like that here in the States.
That's funny that you mentioned IKEA, because the Nikki Gilliland article says some of the biggest retail brands in the world are downsizing. IKEA, known for its large and expansive physical stores, is the latest name to announce an investment in small outlets. It follows on from the likes of B&Q and Target, which also experimented with small, super targeted micro stores. Offering a limited selection of stock in micro stores, IKEA is able to offer customers more of what they want and less of what they don't, meaning it's unlikely to be left with unsold or outdated products. Which goes to what we were talking about, right? Is that these small ships can change quickly, they can turn on a dime. And so if you're able to notice trends quickly, you can very quickly adapt to them. It's easy to adapt. And so we've talked about in education with micro schools, right? Is that the education system needs serious revamping, and it's only continuing to fall further behind as these kids get a hold of all this different tech at younger and younger ages. So we need, these micro movements are trying to very quickly adapt and sort out some of these issues, and it's going to take the bigger schools a longer time to figure it out. And the same seems to go with entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So get out there, start something, someone out
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
It's this
Look at this.
podcast. You want to take us home?
Okay. Yeah.
I
So
like your voice more than mine.
I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. But thank you all for listening to us. Yeah. We appreciate it. Please subscribe, follow the podcast, share it with your friends, family, and worst enemies.
Listen
And
to it with your dog.
yeah, that too. So, on behalf of my friend Bertram over here, I'm Los, and we'll see you not just on this side, but we'll see you on the upside. All right. Have a
Ta
good one,
ta.
yo. Bye bye.